So now we'll be starting with the accessories for Baby Yoda. As we finish each accessory, we will bring in the associated Baby Yoda character. Though for the time being, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 accessories. This one is 14. It's actually a new image that the artist drew. So it's Baby Yoda eating sushi. So as usual, to start, we have a sphere in our workspace. We've converted it to Polymesh 3D, so it's sculptable. And the floor has been disabled. In the draw menu, we are changing the angle of view to 28 just to prep. So feel free to choose any accessory here. I'm going to start with the very simple turkey leg. The associated Baby Yoda character for the turkey leg is right here. And there we have it. And the associated image for the same thing is over Am I blind? No, it has to be here. This is quite, there it is. So that is the associated turkey leg reference image with Baby Yoda. So I'm just gonna move my mic a little forward. Alright, the audio is a bit more clear. And I will also activate my web camera. So you can see me all unshaven and unprofessional in attire, oddly enough. Well, not really, but this is the hour of need. So going back to our Polymesh 3D, it isn't necessary to really scale it. We will be scaling it down later. For now, just make sure that you are in perspective mode. Disable dynamic, because I prefer to work that way. Shape doesn't really matter. I mean, not the shape, the direction. Spotlight projection turned off, and click and drag to get the general basic shape of our relatively simple looking turkey leg. I'm just going to divot here, pull out a little bit. Fatten up the leg. We've kept symmetry on right now, but we don't need it completely. To reduce this a little bit. Keep using the clay tubes brush to build on some texture. Unevenness of turkey leg with crispy skin. And so realize that without zero mesh you are dealing with this odd topology. So it is a good idea to zero mesh sooner than later. Maintain an asymmetry. And for the leg piece, we can duplicate, change the stroke to a lasso, hide. So this is what we want. We want to delete what's hidden. So modify topology, delete hidden. You could use close holes and then zero measure, or you can use Dynamesh and it will also close holes for you. There. After that's done, go to zero measure, reduce the target polygon count to a very low level so that it eliminates all those horrible hard edges and softens up the mesh. Try it again. So control click and drag with Dynamesh turned on will Dynamesh again. To get out of it, you can just use zero measure to go back to where you want to be. Disable the gizmo 3D, pull this out. Scale this down, move this down. You can use this to stretch out. Be careful when you go the opposite way. Otherwise a simple scale down. And then use your move brush. Just poke it in. It has been a while since I got back to sculpting, since I had other things to focus on, but it's always fun to come back to it, I find. Be in the right headspace for it. Sometimes that's important too. Or ever useful obs brush to make that little turkey bone shape. Again, don't underestimate the power of the move brush to give you what you need without having to really dig in with sculpting brushes. The move brush is a sculpting brush also, but it doesn't work like the clay brushes. It is just a brush that moves stuff around. This turkey legs are making me hungry. And as you notice, we selected the blob brush. Probably not our intention, but you can always go in and try and see if it adds a slightly different dimension to it, to your model. It's still a lot lower in resolution, so kind of important to keep that in mind when you're sculpting. This works very well. Very well, in fact. And it is too large still, so we're going to just reduce it in scale. This also, reduce it. And just lift a bit of the edge off with the orbs brush. Take the trim dynamic brush to kind of flatten it against the thing. This is going to be really tiny as far as the actual model is concerned. And the 3D print, obviously, keeping that in mind, it's probably not necessary to put that much detail into it. However, as long as your topology is relatively uniform, you're not having any obvious irregularities, you should be able to get a pretty good design that looks like bone. Something like this happens, always zero mesh. And if this happened, you have your symmetry turned on, so it looks vulgar. Not a good thing. So try it again without symmetry being on. And that is the result we need. Divide a few times. You can smooth this out because it looks very strange. You can get a bit more definition going here. Each polish brush. Get a bit of shaping going. You've seen how bone looks. As far as this is concerned, this is relatively okay, but we will try to match the shape a little bit more. So that just reduce this a little bit. This needs to be expanded greatly. Don't want to keep the baby hungry. I don't even know if it has any teeth to actually chew this thing, but I suppose it just licks it or something. Creepy thing. Frog legs, I guess. Maybe this is a frog leg masquerading as a turkey leg. There's also a displace brush. Give you a slightly interesting thing if used at a much lower resolution. Like all it's really doing is it's just lifting the geometry, displacing it. Or crack brush can also help. There's also a brush that is actually sort of like a chisel brush. Let's see if we have a chisel. Yes, we have a chisel rectangle. There's an interesting pattern on it. There's the regular chisel brush, the chisel 3D. I'm not entirely sure what that is. Chisel creature. Oof. But I think for the moment, even the crumple brush can give you some very interesting results if you try that out. So trying the chisel brush. Ooh, wow. That's like just taking a whole chunk off. You must remember using it in that sense. Yeah. So it's quite mild actually. I was looking for something that would probably punch into it, so the planar brush could help. Yes, polish brush, slash brushes could also help. A concrete brush is a good option. I usually end up selecting the concrete brush by accident. I think I press S, F, soft concrete, to give it that texture, I guess. It's probably not the right pattern, so you could actually choose something like this one instead. We get a much better pattern. See? D, 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 D. For the purposes of 3D printing, patterning is also important, but it really depends on your resolution at the end, whether you'll actually see any of that or not. Always keep that in mind. In this case, I'm pretty much going quite easy with this, and not having any particular, like, I should do this or I should do that. It's just manipulating a turkey leg that is going to be really tiny actually when it comes to the actual sculpt, but at the same time, it was the orb brush, but not the orb crack brush. Though I'm not entirely sure if I have it here. Once I get it in the next video, we will look into it. And that's the turkey leg for you. So now we're going to be starting with the next accessory on our list. Let us try this one. So the same thing follows. Polymesh 3D. Here you can actually use symmetry to your favor. It's very simple. Disable dynamic. Back face masking, not needed. Spotlight projection is off. Just, oops. Make the move brush. In this case, actually, it's probably more sensible to use Alt, click and drag. And shape it out. Makes sense. Shape it up a little bit. Another way would be to actually take two pieces of the ears and fuse them to the mesh, using Dynamesh to combine it together. This is also acceptable. Also very important to zero mesh. And I think it's probably not a sphere, so I'm just going to flatten it out a little bit. Might help to find out what that exactly is. So at least from the image, it seems to be a kind of pastry with frosting, sugar frosting. It is actually a lot flatter than spherical. And a bit more pinched on the inside. You can just use the cracked brush and shape it up a little bit, a little higher than that. And smooth it out. Yeah, so that's a bayonet, or big net. Not entirely sure about the pronunciation, but this is how it's supposed to look. Get a little fatter. See how I use the move brush to slightly and lightly pull out to create a lot more volume. It's a pretty efficient technique without actually adding additional clay using the clay brushes. Okay. Okay, so following that, we'll actually make this, because they're quite, excuse me, similar to each other. It's going to duplicate the first one, rather name it as net. I believe this was a waffle. I think that was a pancake, or no, a pretzel. I believe this is a pretzel. So we're just gonna repurpose a bayonet to make a Mickey Mouse pretzel. I believe they have holes here, so I'm just gonna get a bit of shaping before we go to that step. Right now you can just make the depressions, give a decent idea of where they're going to be. Same thing for here. I believe this is a gap. Probably goes both ways. But we'll actually be inserting geometry to create the shape. Same thing for here. And there's the mouth. So the nose is too low. Let's increase that. Just give it an indication. Just gonna subdivide it. Take this a little bit more. Same thing for this. So what I'm actually doing here is I'm creating enough of a depression that might allow me to try and select the area as a mask and then deselect it. Mask by cavity. You see how it kind of selects a lot of the cavity we need. It also does select a lot of the cavity we don't need, so we'd have to deselect all that. And you can also go in dots mode and clear it out a little bit more. Select areas where it's not quite clean. Clean it as much as possible. So if you, this can happen if you don't have your backface masking turned on. So make sure you have that turned on. And then we can use polygroups to group mask. You see, like, be careful of these areas. If that happens, just go in and clean it up. Control click will lighten the mask, and Control Alt click will actually, like, if you Control click it to lighten the mask, Control Alt click will sharpen it, which is what we want. Okay, group mask. So duplicate it, hide this one. You can see if I remove the line, this is what we have. So I'll select this. And we're actually going to be using this geometry as a punch. It's only one side, mind you. Geometry, modify topology, delete hidden. Oh, delete lower, delete hidden. This is an interesting trick that you can use. So you can go into morph target, store morph target, deformation, inflate by around I guess 10. Go back to morph target, create difference mesh, and you have this difference mesh that actually has thickness. Now what you do is you remesh it, and because it has thickness it won't break or cause all kinds of problems. Okay, that takes care of that. It's also better if you zero mesh at a lower resolution, so 0.1. It will eliminate all those little overhangs that you're seeing here, but it will also eliminate the mesh, so probably 0.1 was too low. This is fine. We're also going to go into the deformation, polish, a bit more. Use your inflate to fatten it up a little bit. Oops. Make sure your symmetry is turned on. And swell it up. So you can see there's some weird stuff happening here, which actually looks like two different meshes. So when something like that happens, you can go into auto groups, poly groups, auto groups, and find that they are separate. Then you can just control click to select, I'll do it again. Control click to select, control click drag, oops, control click drag, control click. So geometry, modify topology, delete it. Now another way to make these sort of hole punches would also be to like mask and extract the mask as a 3D object. So that's also a way. In this case I just separated it, used the extract it to create trick to create thickness, and got it working that way. But it's not quite done yet, we still need a much cleaner mesh, so zero mesh again. And now you can actually zero mesh at a much lower resolution, so try 0.5 and try 0.1. There. And then go into deformation, polish, there. Nice and clean. You can also use your move tool to stretch him out a little bit. But what we'll basically be doing is separating these pieces and then using them as extracts on this mesh. So you're going to take that pretzel again. This could be just hidden for now. I can just duplicate this. This will be the one that I'll be extracting from. Insert the extract mesh, as you can see. Now the main thing is that we need each of these to be a hole punch, so they need to go through the model, not just sit on it. So we're going to be doing that now. Select the first one, Control click to mask, Control Shift click unhide, Control click to transfer the invert the mask under transparent mode, so you can kind of see what's going on. So move brush, extend it. Like, we just really need the hole, so if it doesn't actually meet that shape, that's okay. So the same thing follows. Control Shift click to select the group, Control click to mask it, Control Shift click to unhide the rest of the poly groups, Control click to transfer the mask. Now in this case, it would be better to rotate a little bit so that you get a bit of even, in that sense. So don't hesitate to use your move tools as well, which might make it easier to, instead of using transpose, which is clearly not as effective as it needs to be. Right there. Yeah. And you can also use your inflate brush. We're going to be running them through a zero mesh immediately after. Control click, drag, actually Control Shift click, transfer the mask. Okay, it's good enough. Control Shift click, mask, Control click. There you go. So these are all our hole punches. Now you can remesh them or not remesh them. They would probably have the same impact either way. So what we're going to do is these two models. We can either conduct a Boolean operation, or we could use the traditional method, which was polygroup. Group is dynamic sub. Go to this one, merge down. Actually, we can also visible. Take out that polygrouping that we did to remove the extracts. Merge down, and as you can see, there are different colors. We need to have this as a difference mesh, so we're going to be polygroup group as tiny mesh sub, so the tool knows that that's what we planned with it. And if I'm correct, this would work. Tiny mesh. Yes, see? It's a nice clean cut right through. Just smooth it out a little bit. It's a little heavy in its topology, so we need to rectify that. Just zero mesh it. Another thing is that, like, you can also like currently so you can also turn on symmetry on all sides. So right now it's only on one axis. You can put it on the Z axis. Actually select at the back. Probably won't have as much of an effect because we didn't turn it on to begin with, which is okay for the time being. Not really an issue, I think. We need his mouth to be a bit more like a smile. Do the same thing on this side. Notice the sharp edge. It's not something we want. So we're going to be polishing, which will kind of take away from that, but that's okay. We're going to be adding it back. Use polygon count, zero mesh again. Pooh, I just demolished it. So what happened here was that because I had symmetry turned on all sides, on Z and X, it just flattened out what we needed. So you got to make sure to have the zero meshing in the symmetry, the axis that we need. If you try it now, it should work. Yeah. So now you can divide and shape it up a little bit more. Making sure to, as you can see, there's a hole. I'm not sure where the hole came from. The way to eliminate it would be to modify topology, and you have a close holes. This is subdivided, so you can reduce the subdivision levels, delete higher, which you don't really need, close holes, and zero mesh again. To use my trim dynamic brush to shape it up a little bit more. give a bit more of a smile. Always helps to smile. And turn on your z-axis symmetry. Okay. I have to pause a bit. Actually, I could keep it running. Be right back. So, quite surprised how he managed despite that. The what? Yeah, it's there. They said until like 1 month they give it. But considering the rest of the day, I go like tomorrow and I'm going to one event that's happening, the Japanese Press Association. So I'll just drop it off on my way there. So I'm just going to be attempting to get close to the shape as we have it, expanding where we need to. Don't want all these sharp edges happening. And just disable z-axis symmetry.
So I want this to be square. It's a little bit fat for a pretzel, perhaps. Might consider thinning it out a little bit. Pull this up a little bit. And use the Hobbs brush to get a bit more shape on the edges, while smoothing it out where I need to. Yeah, it's a nice Mickey Mouse pretzel. Definitely give it more of a smile. This one seems to have felt better. Oops. Turn backspace masking and fill it up a little bit. It can be uneven. It is a pretzel after all. It's not really going to be super symmetrical either. I believe we can turn this off. Oh, that's your pretzel. Really fatten this up a little bit more. Nice thick pretzel. There you go. Alright. That's good. Now if you truly wanted it to be like the same on either side, you could use zero meshing with your z-axis turned on and it would do the job. It would also become a bit flatter, so probably we'll have to expand a bit following that. Okay, for the sprinkles, now they're just little cubes, so you can just drop in a basic cube. Zero mesh it. It's also a way to use nano mesh, though I would have to look into it a bit more. However, for the time being, we're not really dealing with too many, but another way, instead of actually creating cubes and dragging them like this, like a crazy person, is using the insert mesh brush. And you have your insert IMM. Oops, that's not the brush we wanted. It's a very basic brush, and it is called the. It's definitely an insert mesh brush. IMM primitives brush. Okay, it's an edge cube, and if you select this, it asks to freeze the subdivision levels. So it is duplicate this and freeze subdivision levels as they asked. And now you can actually just, like, you know, drag out that's not really working. Let's try another one. Yeah, this is a better cube. So just like, so when you click and drag, it creates a cube, and then when you click on the mesh you're drawing it on, you will mask it, and you can click elsewhere, create another one. So I'm just going to be deleting these two because we don't really need them anymore. Click and drag, click and drag. Just rotating it away from. So you don't really need to click on this and then draw another one. You can just draw another one. And luckily, they're all polygroups. You can select them all. Control click, click. Move them all inside a little bit. You can use your move brush with the polygroup masking turned on. There. This will actually select the whole polygroup. Well, it is actually selecting across all the polygroups when you think about it, but they're widespread enough that it wouldn't really influence one and, you know, come in the way of the other. Well, at least not often. So yeah, it does a good enough job. This has free subdivision levels turned on, so we're just going to split this. Subtool, split hidden, still has the free subdivisions. There we go. Fine. And you can always feel free to like duplicate this and add more. This is what we're going to be doing. Is like we're going to subtool master. Measure along the z-axis. And select that. And obviously we don't want all of them to be in the same sort of, parallel to each other exactly. So one smart thing we can do is just and delete it. So it's kind of giving the impression that we actually took the trouble of things together. And then I just literally now you can auto groups, increase the brush size. A little bit, drag. That Twitch stream is actually working quite well. No idea of the music that I'm
stick that in.
Never mind. Probably better to save this as a separate tool. It works. So the next one we do is, I guess this would be a good option, the ice cream. If I remember correctly, the Yoda eating the ice cream looks quite freaky. So let's take the bayonet, call in the bayonet, and turn it into an ice cream bar. It's quite simple. So in this case, having it be symmetrical on all sides is quite practical because ice creams are machine made, so usually wouldn't have so much deformation unless they were melting. So we would use our zero measure tool. Wow, it's so flat. Really flattened. Which is okay. I mean, just fatten it up a little bit. As you can see, it's now a lot more like it was made in a factory. You just have to shape it up a little bit. That works well. But the topology needs work, so you remesh it. A bit heavy. Prefer this. And then we need to make the little ice cream stick. For the purpose of that, insert a cube. I guess it's okay. And if you just drop in a zero mesh, low enough poly count, you can round off those edges. Do it again. Polish. That's good. It's a bit on the rounder side, so let's just add that again. And polish. Divide. So lightly sharpen the edges. Actually, the most effective way to sharpen this would be to just use a clip brush. And just divide it up. Yeah. There's a Mickey ice cream bar. So we will just save as pinnet, chunky leg, and pretzel. I guess we will tackle the cones next. Actually, we do have a Mickey waffle that needs to be worked on. I'll come back to that shortly. Thank you for tuning in.